I am really excited to have you here for this episode because it's another one about podcasting. So, you may have been listening to me and a listener of this podcast or an entrepreneur living with chronic illness, trying to figure out, Nikita, how do you do it? Like, how do you attract clients that you love? How do you work with clients that you care about? How do you even have guests on your show? How do you feel so confident sharing your story? And hopefully, this episode will help you learn how to attract your next clients from your podcast and answer the question on whether or not you need to start a podcast or launch a podcast for your business to help you create your next $100,000 with more ease. Welcome to She's Crafted to Thrive, a globally ranked podcast for women living with chronic illness and creatives in business. I'm your host, Nikita Williams, chronic illness warrior and photographer turned digital marketer turned award-winning coach. I love helping chronic illness warriors and creatives to live with their chronic illness and creativity as their superpower in life and business. On the show, you will hear the very stories that helped our guests, my clients, and myself to define our dream way of making money with proven strategies and marketing and mindset, all to grow a business that thrives without sacrificing our health. So stay tuned because you'll find the inspiration and tools and the resources you need to craft a life and business that thrives. Welcome back to the She's Crafted to Thrive podcast. I am really excited to have you here for this episode because it's another one about podcasting. So, you may have been listening to me and a listener of this podcast or an entrepreneur living with chronic illness, trying to figure out, Nikita, how do you do it? Like, how do you attract clients that you love? How do you work with clients that you care about? How do you even have guests on your show? How do you feel so confident sharing your story? And hopefully this episode will help you learn how to attract your next clients from your podcast and answer the question on whether or not you need to start a podcast or launch a podcast for your business to help you create your next $100,000 with more ease. So one of the things that I have been really paying attention to while I've been working with some of my current clients who I've been working with for a while before I even started really honing in on podcasting being one of the tools that I really do believe creates momentum and growth in your business and also in your healing journey as a chronic illness warrior, is something that I thought I would share with you that has been more in detail, that has been more of the mindset and heart behind how I have attracted clients on my podcast and guests on my show is because of this mindset. And to me, it has always been, and I have always believed in genuine, authentic connections is the way to grow and to build anything, whether it's a business, whether it's relationships, whether it's being in a new community of some sort, or going through a new crisis, a new chronic illness, a new trauma, is finding ways to find genuine, authentic connections that are so real, that are so real to who you are and the values you hold dear, that makes it kind of impossible for you to mess up. Kind of makes it really impossible for you not to attract people who want to be in your world or to have conversations with people who want to be a part of your mission and your story. And so when I talk about attracting your next client to your by launching your podcast, I am really talking about getting really clear about who you are and how your story ties to people. Earlier this week, I was thinking, and I've been doing a lot of thinking as I pivot, or I've been more saying being fully more in alignment in my business, especially when it comes to marketing, because here's a little side tangent. I truly believe that for my clients, we can hold these two things to be true. One, you can grow your business your way with ease and make $100,000 without sacrificing your health, without sacrificing things that matters to you, without hustle and grind all of the time, okay? And I also believe, so these two things to me are both very possible to hold and contain, that you can grow a business as well by using the same method that I have in order to grow my business, which first and foremost, as a coach, started off with this podcast. And it started off first by me wanting to bring a service and to truly connect with people. So I cannot emphasize this part of the mindset piece of launching a podcast that is really behind the thought and movement of being of genuine want to connect and to serve others, right? And that is why I wanted to do this episode, because so many of you in my community, as well as some of my clients are like, Nikita, how did you just start this podcast that you didn't know anything about? And all of a sudden you have like over 100 episodes and you have all of these different things that you do. Like, how did this happen? And it really started from my literal heart gut wrench need at the time when I started my podcast to connect with other people so that I can create content that served them. And I wanted those connections to be absolutely genuine and based on the values and interests and creativity that I saw in others. And that to me is the foundation of how launching and having a podcast that helps you to bring in at least 35% of your clients has to come from. It cannot come from this thought of, I'm doing this so I can get all these clients. It cannot come from, I'm going to do this so that I can, reach these other people's audiences so that they can be my clients. It cannot come from that because it will not come from a genuine place. Podcasting allows you to have a very authentic connection with people because they hear your voice. They hear the resonance. They hear the ebbs and flows of your voice, and they hear your stories. From the beginning of time, we have all connected truly because of stories that meant and mean something for us, that mean something about us, that connect us to each other. And in a world, and I know I keep talking about this whole AI thing, but in a world where you can literally create content by asking a question to a robot like a computer, and they can spit that out, the more important it is to learn the power of genuine, authentic human connection. And a podcast is one of the best ways to do that, right? We all have heard some of those conversations from like automated things, and we can tell the difference between that and a human. Sometimes it's difficult, true. But if you were to go even deeper into a conversation with that thing, right, you will know that there's something missing. And so that's the piece I want you to understand, that in order to attract clients or turn guests into clients while having a podcast, you have to know a couple of things about yourself, okay? And this is going back into the thought of why I believe chronic illness warriors are so more, like not even more, they are so equipped. They are so equipped with the tools to create a podcast that creates this authentic, genuine connection that makes it impossible for people not to want to be on your show and makes it impossible for people not to want to work with you, right? As a chronic illness warrior, we've had to come to learn how to turn these problems and challenges into ways to communicate and articulate things that matter deeply to us, things that make a difference for our environment and our relationships, our boundaries. We have had to learn how to advocate for ourselves. And in that advocating, in that learning, we've learned how to also do that for others that we care about, or we've learned how to apply that and give comfort to others because of our own stories and learning how to have this genuine, deep connection first with who we are, right? Knowing what we want, knowing what our core values and our stories, good, bad, ugly, wonderful, whatever, embracing them to fully show up to really acknowledge what needs to be worked on, what needs to be embraced. All of the things needs to be embraced, but how can we move those things into ways that they serve us and serve others? And as chronic illness warriors and creatives particularly are equipped with the tools to start and launch a podcast, create a movement, create a community that want to be in your world, who want to work with you. So the power of podcasting and attracting clients is truly in your transformation of learning and your struggle journey of genuine deep connection. And that is why a podcast will work for you and make it easy for you to attract clients. So here are a couple of things I want you thinking about if you're wanting to use podcasting to help you grow your business and to make $100,000 with more ease while living with chronic illness, okay? Because this is how I did it, y'all. This is how I continue to do it. You have been here, part of my journey. There have been times where I've paused. I have been not as consistent. But the thing that has always been consistent is that when I show up and when you hear conversations with other people on this show, it is truly coming from this genuine, authentic connection with the other person and with me, okay? So here are the things that you want to have in mind launching a podcast and how it will help you grow your business. These people that listen, you who are listening to my show are not just numbers. You're not just listeners. You're my community. I may not know every single face, even though I feel like I know a lot of you because many of you come into my DMs or watch my lives or on my website or have met in person or are part of some of my other communities that I'm a part of. I view when I speak into this mic right now in my office, like I'm in my office, it's a Thursday afternoon. It's gray and like kind of rainy and Zoe's sitting underneath my feet. I feel that though I am talking to a mic, I feel like I'm talking to you. Like you who are sitting here listening, whether you're driving, whether you're sitting in bed with your heating pad, whether you're going to a doctor's office, a doctor's appointment, whether you're sitting at your laptop trying to figure out what am I going to do to grow my business? I believe I'm speaking directly to you. So my heart and thoughts are involved in this conversation. And that is still true too when I'm talking with another guest. You'll notice that when I'm talking to other guests, you're hearing us talk, and I like to see my guests in person for most of them. Like some of them don't want that, but for most of my guests that I have on the show, we're looking at each other while we're recording this episode, right? And if I see them say something or do something, I try to describe that to you because I want you to be here with us. I believe that you are, right? So view your podcast or starting your podcast from that place. Like these are more than just listeners. This is a captive audience that feels like they're being seen, heard, and part of their stories are coming from our voice or our stories, and they're feeling affirmed for the different challenges and struggles and triumphs that they've had. Okay. The other thing you want to think about when you're launching a podcast is being really strategic about who you have as a guest on your show. Know who they serve, right? So know who are the people that they connect with. Know how they connect with them. Know what troubles and triumphs they are going through in their community. And when you get in a conversation, you won't feel so out of lost in a way. Or if that's something you haven't learned, ask about that in the conversation. Tell me more about your people that you work with and how was that formed or informed the way you view how you do what you do. Really make these guest conversations very organic and purposeful and pulling, and I say pulling like a magnet, pulling their audience into your world, into their world. And it's like a party. Okay. Doing this helps you really create an attraction mechanism in your podcast that allows people to come to want to know more. They will go beyond the first episode. They will go beyond the episode that you did with this guest. They will want to hear more because they feel that deep, genuine connection, that foundation. Okay. Make it about them. Make these episodes about your potential clients. Make the guests that come on the show, make it feel like it's about them. Make it feel like it's an organic conversation. Connect with their story and their perspective. Share yours as well. I feel like sometimes one of the questions I get often from my clients is how do you know whether or not you're letting your guests shine enough, right? And I always like to ask, how do you know in a conversation that you've learned enough or that you were present enough, right? You look back. And that's the power of podcasting too, is that you can go back and listen to some of these episodes, or you can ask for feedback from your guests. Like, did you feel like you were allowed to share your story? And did you feel like, I really featured you? And also we had a beautiful conversation that could serve your audience as well as mine. Genuine connection is what helps you to know whether or not your audience or your guests are getting that kind of connection, right? The other thing I have found that when people start a podcast or are thinking about launching a podcast, they often ask me like, Nikita, like, how am I supposed to know what to talk about? And I like to say, you are the expert in your story. You are an expert in the things that you do every single day that you think no one would care about or think is so simple. But there are people listening right now. You are listening right now thinking, Nikita, this is not simple. Showing up and talking up to a mic and posting it and letting like thousands of people, like wherever this thing is going, for people to listen to me is not easy. It wasn't easy for me either when I first started. I had no idea what I was doing when I started my podcast. But the foundation of deep connection is what helped me, right? Deep, genuine connection, authentic conversations is what made this podcast continue to grow, for you to find me, for you to stay here and share it with your friends, to leave reviews, to become my client, to become my support system, my, like I say, my invisible sales, amazing team that says, wonderful things about this podcast and about what I do. You have to believe in your ability to connect with people by being an expert in your own story, and believe that your podcast is going to serve whoever tuned in, even from the episode 1, right? A lot of people tend to not even make it to the next 3 or 10 episodes when they launch a podcast because they're not viewing it as a relationship based in deep connection, right? And service. So be of service beyond like the episode. So if you have a guest on the show, be of service. Something that I always have asked my guests, I'm thinking both clients and guests, but specifically for guests, something that I've asked my guests about is really like, how can I help you? Like, how can I serve your audience? What would be great for them? What do they want? Right? And then I ask my listeners, I ask you to tell me in my DMs, or I ask my clients to be like, what are some things that really would help you, right? Even in my sales calls, when I have sales calls with you all, that book a call with me, trying to decide whether or not it's going to be a confident, yes, I want to work with Nikita, or a confident, not right now. I hear so many different things from you. And some of the things that you all share with me are things like, I love this specific topic, or how you talked about this and blah, blah, blah in whatever episode. And I create more content of service for that, right? So be really intentional about your service and commitment to that. And then lastly, the next thing I want you thinking about for you to feel like you can attract your clients and potentially turn your guests into your clients is be clear on your unique selling story proposition, your unique perspective. So I will say, when I first started my podcast, one of the things that I always said was like, connect with a client or connect with a guest and really share whatever it was. Let them share whatever it was and all of that jazz, right? And I think as I grew in my podcasting world, there were some things that I realized that even though I have guests on my show that feel really aligned, we have different perspectives. And for me, the best way to serve their audience outside of having their guest, like that person on my show, is to also share my unique story and selling proposition, my unique perspective, because their audience doesn't have that, right? My guest does not have Nikita speaking to their audience all of the time from my unique perspective as a chronic illness warrior. And that is how I even came to this niche of learning about why I want to talk more about business and chronic illness. And that to me is important in a guest interchange of conversation, right? And also when your guests are like your ideal clients that you like would love to work with, this is 100% important, and also why I continue to go back to this point of genuine, deep connection. Because if you are tied to being genuinely connected, you will genuinely, I can't say that, you will genuinely share your unique story and selling proposition because it serves them. It serves the guests. It serves those who are listening. It serves everyone, right? And it's not that you take up the whole thing and talk about yourself the whole time when you're having a guest on the show, but you share this unique part of your perspective so that they feel heard, seen, and understood and become aware of how you are and how you could serve them beyond this episode, right? That is how you translate turning guests or even like guests who are potential clients and listeners into clients, right? It is deeply based on your ability to deeply connect and be clear on your expertise and your story and your unique perspective on any given topic, right? That is how you help yourself grow a thriving, more abundant, amazing community, is because of that. Okay. So those are a few different ways that you can attract your next couple of clients, whether they're listeners, whether they're guests, whether they're dream clients that you just have to have on your show because you love what they're doing and who they are and you want to support them. That's how you can convert or translate, or I don't like the word convert. It sounds so like salesy, but literally that's how you attract and transform these guests and listeners into clients that are your dream clients, the ones that you like would love to work with. That is how you do that. And doing this process, learning how to do this process and being very intentional about it is what has allowed me to make over 35% of my income from my podcast, and why I now have a community of people who know and talk about me in rooms when I'm not there. It's because of this genuine, deep connection. And I continue to connect back with y'all. Like, you know, it's not a one-sided thing. It's a very deep connection is a cycle, right? And it's a beautiful one. And it's one of the ways that you can make $100,000 in your business with more ease. And to me, if I can spend 30 to 45 minutes with one person to have an impact on thousands, that's a much more better use of my time and energy as a chronic illness warrior, especially if I could do that from bed or from my sofa or from my office or wherever, to create that connection with my audience without worrying about the algorithm or some other random things happening, right? So that is the power. That is the power. And if that is something you want to know and have a strategy around and deal with all the limiting beliefs that come up around why you feel like you're not an expert in your story, or why you don't like your voice, right? Or why you feel like you don't know anybody to be a guest on your show, or why you would even have a podcast because you're not even sure people would listen. All the thoughts that come up, you might want to book a call with me just to learn whether or not that this is a way that could help you grow and make $100,000 with ease, your way and your unique situation. So you can always find the link to this at the link in the show notes. And there's always a link in there to book a call with me. And I love to support you. But if you have been on the fence about launching a podcast, it's time, y'all. It's time. We need your story more than ever. We need your unique perspective more than ever to come out so that you can serve, right? So you can show up and help these people that you want to serve in such a powerful way. All right. So that is all for this episode. You will start hearing some more guest interviews that I've had with folks over the last year. I'm kind of behind, like legit. Like I have so many people that I've had record. And that's something that I teach you also inside of working with me one-on-one about launching your podcast, is learning how to get like a bank of guests so that you can pull from them and like have them coming out. And it's not always about you. It's about the guests too, and in a way that feels really easy so that you don't always feel like you're having to show up and talk all of the time, just you. It's really nice because these are not 15-second reels. These are real conversations that end with some substance that you can then turn into wonderful content, like smaller content. But that's a whole nother episode. But anyway, If you're struggling with the thoughts about launching a podcast, I want you to remember that you have gifts, you have an expertise, you have a story. And yes, you are crafted to thrive.